Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Abanil and I will be presenting the story on GMOs. So, for the next parts of this presentation, that will be Kimberly Galsim and Francine Santa Ana. Okay, let's start. So, GMO stands for genetically modified organism. So, let's define first the different terms. So, genetically refers to genes. Genes are made up of DNA, which is a set of instructions for how cells grow and develop. Modified, this implies that some change or tweak has been made. Organism, it refers to all living things, including bacteria and fungi. Okay, next slide. Genetically modified organisms are being created and grown across the globe. GMOs are living beings that have had their genetic code changed in some way. An organism that has had its DNA altered or modified in some way through genetic engineering. Genetic engineering. The process of creating GMOs is called genetic modification or genetic engineering. GMOs are organisms that have had their characteristics changed through the modification of their DNA. So, in addition about GMO, any organism could be genetically modified, but laws restrict the creation of genetically modified humans, and the production and distribution of other GMOs is tightly regulated. In this infographic, it's still about GMOs. So humans have crossbred plants for centuries. Developing genetically modified organisms is a more targeted process. GM technology isn't only for crops. Use on microorganisms such as bacteria has created medicines like insulin and vaccines. Okay, it is important to know how are organisms genetically modified. Genetic modifications can be made to both plants and animals. Genetic engineering is the modification of an organism's phenotype by manipulating its genetic material. Some genetic engineering uses the principle of recombination. Recombination is the process through which a gene is inserted into a bacterial DNA, the plasmid. Okay, to create a GMO, we change specific characteristics by using lab techniques to delete or alter specific sections of DNA. A scientist causes a gene to be inserted into the DNA in the nucleus of a single cell. Once this single cell has been modified, the scientist will treat it with naturally occurring plant hormones to stimulate growth and development. This one cell will start to divide, which is the natural growth process for an organism, and the resulting cells begin to take on specialized functions until they become a whole plant. Because this new plant was ultimately derived from a single cell with the inserted gene. All of the cells in the regenerated plant contain that new gene. There are several techniques that can be used to modify a genome. So first, agrobacterium-mediated. Genetic modification is a technique used to introduce new DNA into a plant genome using a modified microbe. Okay, next is gene targeting. Is a technique used to introduce new DNA into selected regions of a genome through a process called homologous recombination. And lastly, genome editing is a technique used to change selected regions of a genome using enzymes designed to cut specific DNA sequences. Why do we make GMOs? GMOs are generally made for medical, environmental, or commercial reasons. GM bacteria have been developed that have had a gene for insulin added to their genome. These bacteria produce large quantities of insulin as they grow, which is then extracted and used by people with diabetes to control their blood sugar levels. So GMOs were and continue to be developed to help farmers with their crops and to produce safer, more consistent medicines and vaccines. The many uses of GMOs. There are a lot of scientific research about this. GM crops can improve yields for farmers, reduce draws on natural resources and fossil fuels, and provide nutritional benefits. That is according to a statement on the website for Monsanto, the world's largest manufacturer of GMOs. Those who directly see the most benefits from GMOs are farmers and agricultural companies. GMOs are also used to produce many medicines and vaccines that help treat or prevent diseases. Before GMOs, many common medicines had to be extracted from blood donors, animal parts, and these medicines had a number of problems including the risk of transmission of diseases, inconsistent quality, and unreliable supply. GMO medicines are more consistent and don't carry the same contamination risk. In addition to the many uses of GMOs, this is an infographic that shows how GMOs help preserve water. It provided different studies to prove that GMO help in water conservation. This infographic shows how GMOs help protect the environment. And lastly, this infographic shows how GMOs help reduce food waste and loss. So, in summary of this infographics, GMOs can have remarkable environmental benefits. They allow farmers to produce more food with fewer inputs. They help us spare land, reduce deforestation, and promote and reduce chemical use. That will be the end of this presentation. These are the references for this presentation, the story on GMOs. That will be all. Thank you.